And those great big, whatever they were, paper mache balls, whatever, they were great. Okay, Winnie, are we ready? Okay. The board met tonight in executive session. We're now ready to continue with the public portion of our meeting. We had one piece of public correspondence since our last meeting, which was an email on March 12th from Alex Meyer with some feedback about the ongoing volleyball discussions that board members, since those discussions are ongoing, we will certainly take that feedback as well as any other feedback into consideration. The president's report. First, I would like to ask for a moment of silence to remember the victims of the Nashville shooting and their families. Okay, thank you. I'd also like to remember a Glen Ridge resident and former district employee, Judy Hartop, who died on March 21st. As I said, she was a Glen Ridge resident. She was also a paraprofessional at the Linden Avenue School. Her two children, James and Nora, graduated Glen Ridge High School. And we send our condolences to those two, James and Nora, and also to her husband, David, still a resident of Glen Ridge. So remember Judy in your thoughts and prayers. The state budget process is ongoing. These two houses of the state legislature are holding budget hearings on the governor's proposed budget, which was unveiled at the end of February. Of interest to us, there is a bill pending in the legislature that would appoint a task force to study the effects of social media on students. There's also a bill up to require additional staff members to have training in suicide awareness. Our teachers and many of our staff do already. This just sort of extends that umbrella. So both of those pieces of legislation are up for consideration in the legislature. With regard to the school safety report, which you'll hear later tonight, I just noted in dealing with people from a lot of school districts that just about every school district is dealing with current upticks in violence, vandalism, HIB investigations. I'm just reminding everyone that what we will hear tonight is for the first half of the school year, first 6 months of the year, rather than what's happened since January. And that is the president's report.
Thank you, Betsy. Since we last met, the two musicals that are sponsored by the high school happened. The middle school put on the musical 13, and the high school did Cinderella, and I was fortunate that I could attend both of those events, and we do have a lot of talent in this building. It's amazing. They were great productions, and I'm glad I had the opportunity to be there. Our next play that we have will be in May by the Ridgewood Avenue School, and that's Descendants, if you're familiar with that Disney production. I do want to talk. We had a little change in protocol at the high school with the procedures to use bathrooms, and that was based on we were seeing an increase of vandalism and loitering in the bathrooms, so we needed to make some changes. The first day that we made those changes, it was a bit rough, which is not uncommon when we're changing protocols in the middle of the year and the students aren't happy about those changes. But we were able to get through those rules, through those changes, and that first day, and I noticed by day 2 and 3 last week that they were implemented, things were much better. It seems the first 2 days this week, things have gone well. The high school has relaxed some of the initial changes. I've been fortunate that I do have a view of the hallways when I'm in my office, and I've noticed a lot less traffic during instructional time, so the students are staying in the classroom as opposed to making excuses to go to the bathroom and use it as their leisure time or whatever else was happening. So I want to thank the students for being patient. Hopefully they're seeing that the changes are working out, and I also want to thank the parents for the same thing. I do have a few student achievements to recognize tonight. The first is senior Carmen Cita, who was named Glen Ridge's Unsung Hero, and that's a program that is sponsored by the Essex County School Boards Association, and I'm hoping to get her here at the next board meeting so we can recognize her in person. I want to say congratulations to Claire Leota, who won the Regional Shakespearean Recitation Competition, and she'll be competing in the National Championships, which is held in New York City in April. And once again, I'm pleased to recognize our very own Colin. Colin was recently named a recipient of National Merit Scholarship. He is one of 2,500 seniors in the nation to receive this honor, so congratulations, Colin. A couple things I want to point out on the agenda that are pretty significant. First is we were awarded a grant for $8,111. That has $811,000. Sorry, $811,000, and that's part of our HVAC project that we have scheduled for this summer. So as long as we are able to get that done on time, we will see that fund after the project is completed. The second significant agenda item is there is a change in the school calendar. One of those unique school years that we didn't use any emergency school closing days. The weather cooperated for us throughout the winter, so I get to reassign those days, and we'll be having off on Monday, April 10th, Tuesday, May 31st, I believe it is, 30th, I'm sorry, and the last day of school is changing. The last day of school will now be June 15th, and that will be an early dismissal day for the students. High school graduation will still occur on June 16th, though. So I sent out a notice today about the proposed changes, and I will send out, once it becomes official, I'll send out another notice to the public. And I will remind the public that the Glen Ridge Education Foundation Gala is on April 15th. The foundation does a tremendous amount of work for the schools and supplements our various activities, and we couldn't operate the same without them. I'm sure you're going to hear that a few times tonight, just reminding you and encouraging you to consider going to the gala on April 15th. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Student Services, Jack DeWitt, who's going to go over the first half of our Student Safety Data System report.
Good evening. I'm here tonight to present on the Student Safety Data System. This is our summary of any harassment, harassment, intimidation, or bullying, investigations, trainings, programs, including the report of violence and vandalism. This is for reporting period 1, which is from July 1st of last year through December 31st. So it's any incidents that happened during that time period. Previously, it was referred to as the EVERS, which was the Electronic Violence and Vandalism Reporting System, and there was a separate system which gathered our HIBs, our investigations, trainings, and all of those things. It's been combined into one place. New for this year, there was a law in January of 2018 which was passed, Public Law 2017, Chapter 291. It was signed into effect, and it created certain requirements for the use of restraints and seclusions with students with disabilities in educational service commissions, school districts, and approved private schools for students with disabilities. So new to our mandatory data collection system for each of the 6-month periods is collecting data on 4 different incidents that might occur. Physical restraint, which is defined as personal restriction that will immobilize or reduce the ability of a student to move all or portion of his or her body. Mechanical restraint, which is the use of any device or equipment to restrict a student's freedom of movement. Seclusion, which is defined as the involuntary confinement of a student alone in a room or an area from which the student is physically prevented from leaving, but does not include a timeout. And also timeout, which is a behavior management technique that involves the monitored separation of a student in a non-locked setting and is implemented for the purposes of calming. So new to this year, for that first period, we're required to collect this data. What you'll see on the next slides is the data that we collect. There is the incidence of violence, which includes assault, fight, kidnapping, robbery, extortion, and those other areas. Vandalism, which includes arson, trespass, computer trespass, damage to property, things like that. Those are gathered together, and they're included with any substance issues that we find, any weapons incidents that happen, and any HIB confirmed. There's also a category which will be HIB alleged, so any investigations that are put into play but are not found to meet the criteria of an HIB. And we also collect data on other incidents leading to removal, so anything that would require removing from a half day of school, such as in-school suspensions, but does not meet the criteria of an HIB. So for the reporting period 1, we did not have any incidents of restraint, seclusion, or the combination of those at any of the 5 schools. So that's that initial data that we are collecting. For reporting period 1, which again goes from July 1st through December 31st of last year, if we look at the central school, there was only one alleged incident that occurred. It was an alleged HIB, but it was found to not meet the criteria. At both Forest Ave and Linden Avenue schools, they did not have any incidents, and they also didn't have any HIB alleged, so there's no investigations that occurred. Ridgewood Avenue School had a total of 3 incidents, and that combines 1 incident of violence, 2 of vandalism, 3 incidents that were led to removal, which is that half-day suspension, and there was 4 alleged HIBs. For Glen Ridge High School, there was a total of 3 incidents, 1 violence, 1 substance, and 1 HIB confirmed, 1 incident that led to removal, and also 4 alleged HIBs. And at the bottom it has the totals for each of the categories. And this is what was reported out to the state. Again, this is just that first reporting period. What's always important to note is that when something is found to be an alleged HIB or not confirmed to be alleged HIB, it can also be found as a code of conduct. So if it's not met in the one category, that doesn't mean that it's not addressed. The 1 confirmed HIB that occurred, it was found the type of bullying was found under the categories of verbal and physical. It was intentional, they found when they investigated it. And the nature of bullying was found to be under gender identity and expression. We don't list what the disciplinary remediation would be because that confidential information might, someone might be able to determine who the student was that was involved, especially because there's such a low number that occur. We also report out, as I had said earlier, the number of trainings and programs that occur across the buildings. So the total that's listed up there was 37 trainings across the 5 buildings plus district-wide, and 43 programs. Again, 5 buildings plus district-wide. These are similar to what we've reported out in previous years for the first reporting period. Here's some examples of the programs that the administrators, the principals had at each of their buildings. So Central School had comm classrooms. Forest Avenue has been doing social emotional lessons and activities. Linden Avenue's Week of Respect. Ridgewood Avenue, SEL lessons on inclusivity and connection. Glen Ridge High School did peer leadership, and there was trainings and workshops for the administration and the bullying specialists. Finally, here are the staff that's involved in any of the anti-bullying investigations. So each building has a specialist that's listed there. Mr. Holguin at Forest, Ms. Jacobson at Linden, Ms. Fitzpatrick at Central, Ms. Bass at Ridgewood Avenue, and Ms. Kobolinski here at the high school. And the administration may also be involved in those investigations. So it's generally the principal, assistant principal, or some other people. And you'll see there's some names on there that will change for our current, when we report out for period 2, which will come in September, October. And that's all.
I'd like to add, there's definitely been an increase in HIB investigations this year, and I think Betsy alluded that that's happening throughout the state, and we're seeing it in our buildings. We are monitoring the situation. We're bringing in more programs than we've had in the past. We are keeping our SEL counselors on that we were able to fund through the grant for another year than we originally planned. Those HIB cases that are not substantiated, we do monitor the reasons why they were investigated to start with, to see if there's any trends. We do monitor the interventions that happened because of those events. We're still seeing the effects, I believe, of students not having that comprehensive experience of school for 2 years during that pandemic, where they're developing those social skills and understanding the norms of working within a school system and within a classroom. Obviously, I have a lot of colleagues that I consult with. I have family who are teachers, and they're experiencing similar situations in their own building. I also want to thank our law firm that there's plenty of times when we have a difficult HIB case that I will consult with them, and their guidance is always appreciated, and I'm thankful for having them available.
Board members, any questions for Dr. DeWitt? Board members and Colin. I keep looking for Dave Campbell. He's not there. Any questions?
Jack, can you go back a slide or 2? One more. One more. One more. Here. Okay. So I see the totals down at the bottom. On the right column, which says incident total, and then the far left, which says alleged HIB. The columns in between, are they to add up to the total incidents and the far left?
Yes, so it works.
So for RAS, you see that total incident
yes.
is 3,
The
but I
incident-
see 3.
1 and 2, and it stops right at HIB confirmed. So it's these categories are turn out for the total.
Okay, so then other incidents leading to removal
Is a separate category.
is a separate category in itself, as
And
well as
HIB alleged.
HIB alleged.
Yes.
Separate categories in itself.
Separate, correct.
Got
Yes.
it, thank you.
You're welcome.
So that tells us that a code of conduct could lead to removal, right? Code of conduct issue could lead to removal.
Correct, yes.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, in a minute we will have audience questions. Dr. DeWitt, anything to add? No? Okay, thank you. Anything else in the superintendent's report?
That's it.
All right, we've now come to the first public comment period for comments on agenda items only. For those who are new to our protocols, I'm not sure any of you are, but if you have a question or comment, come up to the lectern, sign in, identify yourself, confirm your Glen Ridge residence, and any group affiliation that you might have. You will have 2 minutes, and that is it. So, does anyone have I should say, Kristen, would you be my timer once again? Does anyone have a comment or a question?
Hi, Phil Johnson. Apologies, I missed the president's report at the beginning or the superintendent's report. I'm actually surprised there's no students here tonight with the bathroom enforcement last week. I do thank the principal and the school for recognizing the issue and trying to address it. I'll leave it to the professionals to try to figure out what the best, how to evolve that over time. But at least I'm thankful for the Dr. Phoenix, Mr. Phoenix and others to help, trying to address that issue. I did see a revised school calendar on the agenda for this. I assume you'll talk about what that and the reasons for the changes, and or if you want to, maybe you can just talk about now in terms of the changes and shifting some of the spring break and other things for next year.
No snow days.
So yeah, I spoke about this earlier. We have 3 unused emergency days, which we typically will use during the winter months, and it was mild enough we didn't have to use them.
Oh, sorry, that was for this year's calendar.
That was for
Okay,
this year's
all right.
count, so it's a shift in,
Okay.
it's reallocating those days
Okay.
back to the staff and
Okay,
students.
got it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other comments? That's the second public comment period. We probably will get to it fairly quickly, so hold on just a few minutes. All right, let's continue with our agenda. It is not the first meeting of the month, so we don't have our full roster of committee and liaison reports, but first I'd like to turn to Colin for his report.
Okay. Last night, the guidance department hosted a college admissions panel at Ridgewood. Admissions counselors from Boston College, Connecticut College, Rider University, Rutgers University, the University of Alabama, and Villanova University discussed their programs, application process, and then fielded questions from the audience. There was a great turnout with about 150 parents and students attending, and the guidance department also welcomed Randy Levin last Thursday for a virtual event about writing effective college essays. Congratulations to our Glenridge Marching Band for musical and cultural connections made on their recent trip to Ireland. The band was awarded Best Musical Entry in the 2023 Killarney St. Patrick's Day Parade, edging out groups from across Ireland and all of Europe. And they also performed in the Limerick International Band Festival. Great job by our middle school students who performed 13 the Musical recently, and the high school drama club, which performed Cinderella this past weekend. The high school student council hosted a faculty versus seniors basketball fundraiser for prom. Great participation and turnout for the event. Unfortunately, the faculty won, led by standout performances from Mr. Morales and Mr. Sicoli. The spring sports season started last week, and regular season games start the week of April 3rd. Schedules can be found online, and also congratulations to our winter athletes who earned recognition either at the conference or state level. The middle school welcomed Rabbi Mark Katz on March 9th to kick off the 8th grade night unit. Rabbi Katz spoke to all 8th graders and answered questions after presenting his background and connections to the unit. The students enjoyed the visit and truly appreciated the time and perspective Rabbi Katz offered to our school community. And finally, there was the whole bathroom situation, which I'm sure you've heard a lot about. The student body was very opposed to the new policies and still are, but the student council did have a productive meeting with administration recently, so it does look like things are improving moving forward, so we hope to see that continue as well.
Okay. I know that in the high school home and school meeting, Mr. Lawler pointed people to the student council, so I'm sure that you had lots of feedback, Colin, yes?
Right, yeah.
Okay.
Lots of feedback.
You can reach Colin at the following email address.
And with regard to the faculty-student basketball game, we are aware that Ms. Cerrone in her high school career scored over 1,000 points, so I'm assuming that she did play on the faculty team.
She did play. I think she was pretty good. I don't know about MVP, but yeah, for sure.
Okay, thank you. Now, does anyone else have a report that is time-sensitive? Yes. Oh, sorry.
Thank you. I'd just like to invite the board and the community and anyone who's interested. I know we've got a lot of interest from administrators and faculty in the Glenridge Educational Foundation's Gala, which is coming up on April 15th. Mr. Phillips alluded to it. A lot of time and effort has been put into making this a really fun event for those in attendance. And as Mr. Phillips said, they have been so generous with us over the past 30 years, and we're celebrating them and everything they've given to our school community, and they're planning on giving in the future. I mean, there's everything from little classroom supplies to things like the virtual high school and Orton Gillingham. We certainly owe them a debt of gratitude. So please come out and support them and have a very fun evening. And Duval, do you have anything you want to add?
There'll be live music, there'll be dancing, there'll be, it'll be catered, so there's a full dinner, and there are beverages for some people. Food.
Yes.
So I think, and it'll be a beautiful event at the Montclair Art Museum.
Thank you. Does anyone else have anything that is time sensitive? Okay. All right, you have in your package sets of minutes from February 21st and March 7th. Does anyone have any changes to those either exec session or regular session minutes? No? And I will say that having to do exec session minutes for a meeting made me extremely grateful to Mrs. Murphy for being here so often. May I have, Tracy, would you move the minutes?
Yes, I moved M1.
May I have a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn,
Aye.
Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Hey, Heather, would you move the administrative minutes?
Sure, I move A1 through A6.
Okay, may I have a second? Second from Kristen. Is there any discussion of the administrative items? No? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
All right, Tracy, would you move the personnel items?
Yes, I moved P1 through P7 with a correction on P6. It should read $45 and per hour, not $30 per hour.
Okay, so, well, as amended. Okay, did I ask for a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Second from Anthony. In keeping with our rules and the board members' code of ethics, discussion of personnel items takes place in executive session. Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Heather, would you move the curriculum items?
Sure, I move the field trips under C1.
All right, may I have a second? Second from Kristen. Any discussion on these field trips? No discussion? No volunteers to chaperone? All right, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, Duval, would you move the business items?
Sure. I'll move B1 through B6.
Okay, and I draw your attention to B6. Upon the recommendation of the superintendent, we accept with thanks the following generous donations. A monetary donation for a laser printer from the Linden Avenue Home and School Association. The value is just over $800. So thank you to Linden Avenue Home and School. Now may I have a second of that motion? Second by Heather. Any other discussion of the business items? Okay, Barbara, would you call the roll?
Ms. Akinwande,
Aye.
Mr. Bonnet,
Aye.
Ms. Graham,
Aye.
Ms. O'Neill,
Aye.
Ms. St. Auburn, Dr. Yaros Ramos,
Aye.
Ms. Ginsburg.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, now we've arrived at the second public comment period for comments or questions on agenda items or other items pertaining to the running of the schools. The protocols are the same.
Hello. Cynthia Garcia on Lorraine Street. I have my last kid who's a senior, and my senior is actually doing fine with the whole bathroom thing, but I don't really have a knowledge of what is happening. Like, what is the actual rule now? And I'd like to know if you guys could tell me that. And I know that some kids with anxiety and 504s were being affected. Like I said, my kid didn't seem to be too affected. But, and then my other thing I wanted to say is I was hoping the students would be allowed to help try to solve the problem, which it sounds like Colin is saying that student council is involved. So I think that's really good. Lastly, I'm very grateful. I know all of you do all this volunteer, and I know you have a lot of good things are happening, so I don't want to just dwell on the bathroom, but I just didn't know what the actual policy is. So if somebody is able to tell me, I would love that. Thank you.
So at this time, and Colin, correct me if I'm wrong, at this time, the bathrooms on the first floor and second floor are open. The single-use bathrooms are also open. The bathrooms in the locker room are open. The gang bathrooms, the bathrooms on the first and second floor, are monitored with a staff member. Students are signing in and out, and I believe at this point they're allowing capacity. And what I mean by capacity, if there's 4 stalls in there, they're only allowing 4 students to go in there at a time. Is that correct, Colin?
That is
All right. So that's where we are right now. As I mentioned, it seems that there's no lines under this policy. Students are staying in the classrooms more. They're not wandering as much because the staff members are out in the hallways monitoring the bathrooms. So the situation for the time being seems to have improved from where we were prior to the protocols in place, and improved from the day one of when the protocols were put into place.
Okay, other comments?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just with students sitting with anxiety, I know a lot of 504s allow them to leave the classroom if they're feeling that way. So do we have, I know at my school there's it's like a wellness room. Do we have that, right?
Correct. It's our Zen room. We have that. We have the counselors available. The nurses, for those who had maybe anxiety with the bathroom, they wanted more privacy, the nurse's office is always available for those students also.
Other comments?
Hey, I'm Alex Meyer. I live on Summer Avenue. I'll just bend. So after the last meeting, a couple things were brought up that kind of sparked some thought from me, particularly the interest in expanding the offer of volleyball program here at the high school, and also Anthony's question about the fact that Coach Ford, our longstanding track coach, was stepping down from coaching spring. I've been thinking about this for a while, and in the ensuing 3 weeks, I've reached out to lots of people in town with kind of a stake in Glen Ridge's running programs, I should say, like our cross-country program or winter and spring track programs. I am a track coach at another district similar to Glen Ridge, and in talking to a lot of folks, what came up repeatedly was that the coach of our program, and I don't want to talk about anyone in particular, but it'll be clear who it is. There's a lot of time that coach is not coaching, either days off, weeks off, and to my mind, the decline in the size as well as competitiveness of our running programs, which were once very strong, seems to come up over and over that's related to some degree of absenteeism on the part of the coach of those programs. So being that situation has arisen again, I was just curious, because nobody seems to know that I spoke to, what exactly is the policy or the rule that allows for a coach to not be present every day that the team is present, and then also, while resigning his position, be repeatedly offered the position back. I'm not sure if that's a legal requirement that we have as a district or if it's just district policy, but it to my mind, it is an issue that has come up over and over and again and has had long-term negative repercussions on our running programs. So,
Okay.
I'll leave it.
I know,
Yeah. So this is a personnel question, so we're not really allowed to speak about it in public. As far as the policy of when we have a coach hired to teach during this season, if there's practice, there's an expectation that the coach is there. There might be some, as with any of us in our job, some other extenuating circumstances where they can't be there, whether it's family or other matters. But that's supposed to be ran through the director of our student activities and athletics, so they're aware of the situation. That's just something I will follow up with. Obviously having consistency is important to developing a strong program.
Mr. Phelps, can you talk about the process for hiring coaches each year? Because I think that would clarify things
Yeah,
a bit too.
So coaches are not guaranteed their position for the following year. Every year, and which will be happening soon, we will be posting every coaching position and co-curricular position for the following year. So those positions become available every year. And if the coach wants to return, they have to put in a letter of interest to the school system. And a lot of times when there is an established coach, there's not other people applying for the position. And sometimes we will get multiple applicants, and we'll go through that interview process.
in general, we've seen shortages in just about every area of school endeavor. Is there also a shortage of coaches?
In certain activities, yes. Yeah, if we have certain sports, field hockey, it's difficult to find a coach. Swimming, it's difficult to find a coach. Football, we seem to get more applicants when there is an opening for a football coach.
Okay, thank you.
Heather has a question.
I'm sorry, Heather.
Sorry, when do we advertise outside for the positions? Is that only when we can't fill it, no one's interested internally?
So most of our postings, are internal. If we don't have openings, we'll go outside and fill them. Ideally, we have a qualified coaching system because it does work better when you have a staff member who it can be effective as a coach, but in the school system, because they're working on the same calendar. A lot of times when you have coaches outside the district, there's delays in them getting to their coaching responsibilities on time.
Other questions or comments from the audience? Okay, seeing none, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion.
Moved by Anthony, may I have a second?